Nintendo is finally treating the Donkey Kong franchise with the respect it deserves. For far too long, Donkey Kong was relegated to Nintendo party games like Mario Party, Smash Bros., Mario Kart, and Mario Sports titles. Of course, there is the 2D platformer Donkey Kong Country series, but the last real entry into that series was Tropical Freeze on the Wii U, which was an incredible game and got its proper spotlight with the Switch remaster. But it still felt like Nintendo was holding the Kong back on the video game side of things. Switch over to the non-video game side of things, with Donkey Kong rumored to be getting his own feature film after the success of the Mario movie, and even getting his own area at Universal with the aptly named Donkey Kong Country. It felt like Nintendo was finally putting the spotlight back on the Kong. This spotlight has shifted to the video game world, with Nintendo giving DK the A-lister treatment by having the Super Mario Odyssey team follow up an all-time classic Mario game with the definitive Donkey Kong game. Before I dive into Bananza, I do want to warn that there's going to be spoilers throughout this video and major spoilers for the ending of the game and the post-game content. Donkey Kong Bananza will feel familiar to anyone that has played Super Mario Odyssey. The way the layers and quests are structured is very similar to Odyssey's kingdoms. Instead of finding moons, you go around getting bananas. But it's the way you find the bananas and complete quests that Donkey Kong Bananza finds its own identity. Bananza is much more similar to like Breath of the Wild in the way that it gives you an almost endless amount of freedom to tackle obstacles and solve puzzles. DK is able to punch through almost every surface in the game as you carve your path to the next Banandium gem or quest marker. If you ever played Red Faction Guerrilla, you would remember how satisfying it was to destroy everything in that game. The game's engine was ahead of its time and was so impressive. Nintendo took that concept and didn't just run with it, it flew. There's something so satisfying with being able to punch and break nearly everything. Smashing your way through the terrain with ease as you collect gold, find treasure chests with different maps for collectibles, and of course, finding Banandium gems never got old. You go into this mindless zen state as you punch and suddenly realize that you just turned this layer into an unrecognizable shell of itself. The real star of the show is the Bananza powers. Part of the main quest has you going to speak to 5 of the Kong elders, where you have to recover ancient records for them, and then Pauline will perform a song that unlocks a hidden Bananza power within DK. There are 5 Bananza forms. You got Kong, Zebra, Ostrich, Elephant, and Snake. All 5 forms come set with their own unique abilities and music. It really creates this feeling that you are unstoppable when in one of these forms. The Kong Bananza is the most basic of the 5, as it more so acts as a super powered version of base DK. The main differences being he can punch through previously unbreakable terrain and can also do a wind-up punch that sends an anime-style shockwave that destroys everything in its path. It's really hard to be in a bad mood when this banging track is blasting in your eardrums as you destroy everything. I found myself using this form quite often, whether it was for quickly destroying terrain or taking down groups of enemies. And the award for most banging song of the year goes to the Zebra Bananza theme. The Zebra is, in my opinion, the most useless of the Bananza forms, as you only ever really need to use it to cross very specific bridges and platforms that only the Zebra can run on. You can do a sudden stop that will toss debris at enemies, perform a charged run, and run on water, lava, or any other kind of material. It just ends up being a really useless form for 90% of the game though. But the Zebra form is carried so hard by its awesome music. Next up is the Ostrich Bananza, which ends up being the best Bananza form for traversal. As you're able to fly across large distances, you can even drop egg bombs while flying. There are a bunch of Banandium gems that can be easily reached once you unlock the Ostrich. I don't really have much else to say about this form. I only ever really used it to fly, so it felt pretty one-dimensional for the majority of the game. Now it's time to break the game, because that's what the Elephant Bananza does. The elephant form allows you to suck up materials like a vacuum. letting you quickly destroy large portions of the map at a time. This is where I first experienced frame drops, as the amount of particles from the destruction caused the Switch 2 hardware to really start chugging. The elephant is really useful if you are low on gold or trying to collect Banandium gem maps, as you will quickly accumulate tons of gold and treasure chests when sucking. The elephant form's other ability is directly tied to the sucking ability. Whatever material you suck up is then stored in the elephant storage, and you can then use that to create a ball of the material that you can then use. This is especially useful for platforming or puzzle challenges that require you to use a certain material to destroy another material or enemy armor. Unsurprisingly, the Elephant Bananza form also has a banging theme song, and you'll be hearing this one a lot, so get used to it. The final form you unlock is the Snake Bananza transformation, and it's a divisive one. Its abilities are incredibly helpful as you have a super jump ability and an ability to slow down time for a short period of time. Slowing down time makes some of the more difficult platforming sections easier, and the mega jump will allow you to reach previously unattainable bananas. But this is also the clunkiest of the forms to control. As you are constantly bouncing, it's hard to hit objects on the ground, and it felt like you move slower than any other form. I thought one of the cooler aspects of the snake form is doing a mega jump and then quickly changing into the ostrich. So you jump up and then you fly. If I had to rank the forms, I would rank them in this order. Snake being last, then zebra, ostrich, elephant, and Kong being the best. Nintendo continues to prove that their games have never been about having the most photorealistic graphics. It's always been about the art style. Donkey Kong Bonanza's art direction is so fun, and each layer has its own personality. The anticipation builds as you plunge down into the next layer, as you wait to see what the next layer's theme is going to be. The Lagoon layer has this almost nostalgic and classic feel to its art style. It feels like it would be right at home in Mario 64 or one of the Banjo-Kazooie games. The Canyon layer immediately felt like the most Donkey Kong Country style areas. Probably because of the rails that made me feel this way. It's a cool industrial playground with colorful smokestacks all set during a sunset. It's the closest thing we got to a desert level, and Nintendo hit a home run. The forest layer is lush with light radiating through their trees, and the ostrich hotel being in the shape of a giant ostrich egg was perfect. The resort layer was beautiful and looked very similar to the Seaside Kingdom in Mario Odyssey. However, not having the underwater be explorable really hurt this layer from really being able to stand out from the pack. The Tempest layer had stunning thunderstorms to be distracted by, and the Radiance layer stood out because it started out with its sun that was in the shape of a light bulb covered up, leaving the layer dark and dreary. You eventually break the sun free, and it brightens the entire layer to reveal a stunning land in the clouds. Shocking no one, Nintendo put together a banging soundtrack to accompany you on your grand adventure. There's tons of returning melodies for longtime fans of the Kong to enjoy, and most of the music is ambient unless you kind of chill out and vibe through the layers. Like I touched upon at the start of the video, Donkey Kong Bonanza takes tons of inspirations from classic 3D platformers, and the overall structure of the gameplay loop and the UI is taken straight out of the Mario Odyssey playbook, which makes sense considering it was the same developer team. But what I wasn't expecting was for this game to take so much inspiration from the Legend of Zelda series, more specifically Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Most 3D platformers are more focused with giving the player tight platforming challenges that players can then master with precision and speed. Bonanza is more focused on letting the player forge their own path on their quest to collect all the Banandium gems. Being able to carve your way to objectives in a vast variety of ways keeps the game fresh and fun. Bonanza is not a perfect game by any means. This is not a challenging game. Sure, it gets more challenging in the post-game, but for the most part, this is not a game that will have you pulling your hair out. But I also don't think Nintendo ever intended for this game to be challenging. It's supposed to be a relaxing and enjoyable adventure that can be enjoyed by gamers of all ages and skill levels. Another letdown for me is a very specific missing gameplay feature, and that is the complete lack of underwater sections. Most gamers will complain that water levels are the worst levels in any game, but I think it's the complete opposite, especially in a 3D environment. I think the resort layer and lagoon layer especially could have benefited from water sections, and I would have loved to see what the art team could do with these water levels. To piggyback off of the issues I had with the game, my main issue with the game was its villains, and here's the thing. The Void Crew is actually a fun group of villains and a major improvement over the Brutals from Mario Odyssey. But I was left wondering why King K. Rool was left out of DK's biggest video game to date. And then this dude came busting out of the Banandium route to reveal himself as the final boss of our adventure. Suddenly, the final layer was filled with K. Rool's Kremlin crew, and everything felt finally right. I do wish the game went a little farther with the Kremlin crew and had them replace the normal enemies in the other layers, but it is still really cool that K. Rool and the Kremlin crew were hiding in plain sight the whole time. The Kremlins were literally covered in different materials and gold, acting as the standard enemies you fight the whole way through, and I never noticed that the gold skeletons resembled the iconic DK enemies. This is why I would prefer the Kremlin crews to replace them, because they were already there to begin with. The final boss fight is epic and delivers the goods, and the credits roll, but the fun didn't stop completely, as we got a fake out credits as K. Rool escapes through the surface and arrives at New Donk City. This moment acts as the connective tissue between Bananza and Mario Odyssey. You fight him one more time, and it's just an amazing finale to a great game. So the story wraps up in a nice, neat bow, and you can put down the controller knowing you got a fantastic experience. But you would be robbing yourself of a more challenging gameplay offering. There's more bananas to collect, but the main course has you doing challenge runs for each Bananza form, forcing you to fully master each form and complete the gauntlet. I do wish that these challenges were included in the main game, and then the post-game challenges could have been gauntlets that forced you to constantly be changing your Bananza forms during the challenges, rather than have each challenge be for a specific form. Now, the final post-game challenge does exactly this, but I would have loved for all of them to be like this final challenge. I want to end this video on a positive note, because I really did love playing this game, and was very satisfied with the 55 hours I put into the game. This quickly became my most anticipated game of the year when it got announced, and I do believe it not only lived up to the hype, but exceeded my expectations. When it's all said and done, I fully expect it to be a front runner for my personal game of the year, and I can't wait to see what Nintendo does next with Donkey Kong.